Good afternoon. My name is Professor John Love. I am your instructor for Chemistry 365. Chemistry 365, Fundamentals of Biochemistry. What is biochemistry, you might be asking? Well, it is the study of the chemistry of life. What, are you kidding me? That was the most boring introduction to biochemistry I've ever heard in my life. That's not how this class is going to go. This class is going to be super exciting. This is a class that will change your perspective on everything about your life, your body, all the chemical reactions that are going on in your body on a regular basis. You want to know what biochemistry is? I'll show you what biochemistry is. Okay, so why did I choose a honeybee as an example of biochemistry? Before we answer that question, I have to go off on a tangent, and I do that a lot in this class, so you might as well get used to it now. We ask tons of questions in this class. Why? How? What? Where? And to a lesser degree, who? That doesn't really come up very often. In fact, during these recorded lessons, the videos will pause and you're going to have to answer questions such as the following. Based on your previous classes and your general life experiences, you should know that the answer to this question is E. Polyesters are definitely not a category of biomolecules, but the other four are, so you should start remembering them right now. You will be asked questions that I insert into the videos using the software called PlayPosit. It's an app. Once you key your answer in and finish watching the videos, your scores will be uploaded into the gradebook on the Canvas page for this class. I'll have more to say about that when we go over the syllabus. Okay, back to the honeybee. How is this an example of biochemistry? Think. I want you to think. What was that honeybee doing? It was collecting nectar and possibly pollen. What is nectar? What is pollen? Nectar is a sugar solution, so it is considered a carbohydrate, one of our biomolecule categories. Pollen is actually a source of male gametes or sperm cells. So what must those cells contain if they function to pass on inheritance to progeny baby plants? That's right, they must contain nucleic acids such as DNA, another category of biomolecules. But the bees also collect pollen because it contains proteins, a third category of biomolecules. By the way, why is the plant producing nectar, which actually costs a lot of energy to make? It does so to entice the bee to the flower, where the bee gets some pollen stuck to it, those sperm cells, and then it transfers those cells to another flower. This is an example of how evolution sometimes selects for other organisms to partake in the plant's goal of sexual reproduction, the mixing of its DNA with another plant's DNA instead of just its own. Okay, what else was that bee doing? It was flying, no? Therefore, it was burning energy, maybe some of that high-octane nectar that it was collecting. What is the ever-ongoing reaction that is constantly taking place in all living organisms? The burning of glucose, C6H12O6, in the presence of oxygen and releasing what products? Carbon dioxide and water. By the way, the proper balancing for this reaction is 1 mole of glucose uses 6 moles of oxygen and produces 6 moles of CO2 and 6 moles of H2O. This is the main reaction that I am referring to when I use the phrase biochemical furnace. Now there's yet another very important biochemical reaction going on in the video of the bee collecting nectar. Where does that nectar ultimately originate from? Think, people. What is one of the most dominant and important biochemical reactions taking place all over the planet all the time, every day? Photosynthesis, which is the opposite of the reaction shown in the previous slide. With photosynthesis, the energy of the sun, in packets of energy called photons, these are captured by special biomolecules in the leaves of plants, and that energy is used to convert CO2 and H2O into glucose. The glucose is then sent into biochemical pathways that produce all of the biomolecules the plant needs, which is also why we eat them. So we've covered all of the categories of biomolecules except for one. And which one is that? For that answer, we now have to travel back to the bee's home, back to the beehive, where the bees use the honey to make a number of substances, such as wax, Wax is a biomolecule that falls in the category of fats and lipids. The bees use the wax to build comb where they store their honey as well as pollen, as shown here in these various colors. They also use the wax honeycomb to lay eggs to grow larvae into new bees, which you can see here at the top, as well as on the next slide in these hexagonal cells. By the way, can you spot the queen in this image? She's the largest bee in the hive. She's on the left here. She's bigger than all the other bees and lays all the eggs that continuously hatch to ensure a continuous supply of workers who go out to collect nectar and pollen. And yes, I am a beekeeper, and I have been stung, which is when I sometimes wonder if there's not an easier way to make money using this beekeeping outfit. Here's my current hive that I actually collected a decent amount of honey from back in the spring. And here's yet another example of biochemistry in action. My chickens that love black soldier fly larvae. They eat them like they were piranhas.
Daily routine, we're about to feed the piranhas with wings these black soldier fly larvae, which also happen to have some ants in it. But here we go. The piranhas are going to act like they haven't been fed. Come on, let's go. Back in, let's go. Nobody's escaping. Come on, let's go. Dinner time. Ready, set, go crazy.
And why do the chickens eat the larvae so voraciously? For biochemical reasons. The larvae have very high protein and fat content, which they use to produce eggs, which are a great source of nutritional protein and fats for humans. Black soldier fly larvae are one of the greatest gifts nature has provided to us humans. They voraciously devour almost any organic material, especially human food waste. And they are not a vector for disease because when the larvae metamorphosize into flies, the flies don't have mouth parts because their only function is to breed and make more fly larvae. I have an environmental science project in which students work with me to collect food waste. We feed it to the black soldier fly larvae, which then get fed to the chickens. The eggs produced by the chickens are distributed to people who live in food deserts in the San Diego region in order to provide them with a good source of protein and healthy nutrition. So there you have it, multiple examples of biochemistry in action. Let's briefly review. So far we've covered the four main categories of biomolecules: carbohydrates, nucleic acids, proteins, which happens to be my favorite, and fats and lipids. We also learned that a major reaction taking place in all life forms is the burning of glucose in our biochemical furnaces, and that the opposite reaction is driven by the energy of the sun, in which the process of photosynthesis generates glucose from carbon dioxide and water. You may be getting the idea that I take biochemistry very seriously. I do. I am very intense about teaching biochemistry, and I expect you to be as intense about learning biochemistry. I feel incredibly lucky that I'm a biochemist, and super fortunate that I have all this fascinating knowledge to share with you all. In fact, you should also feel very fortunate that you're learning the material because you are very lucky and a select portion of the total world population that gets to learn this material. I have proof of that. So we know that science is all about inquiry. Inquiry is all about wondering and questioning. So here's a question for you. How many humans currently populate our planet, the planet Earth? Well, if we go to our friendly Worldometers website, we can actually find out what that number is. And here we can see the very sobering and way too large number of 7,806,984,761. Today there were about 263,000 births, about 110,000 deaths. That means that we had a population growth of 152,000 just today, 90 million births this year, 37 million deaths, with an overall population growth of 52 million. Very large, very concerning numbers. I said that number is concerningly large, the 7.8 billion humans on this planet, because there's only so much room on the planet, and I think we're slowly but surely crowding out many other species. But that's another matter altogether. Let's return to the topic that we're discussing. So let's say there's 7.81 billion people on the planet. Here's another question for you. How many universities are there in this world? I used the handy dandy internet and found out that there are an estimated 26,000 universities in the world. That seems somewhat overinflated to me, but let's assume that 20,000 of these universities teach some form of biochemistry. And let's assume that the average biochemistry class has about 100 students. That means there are approximately 2 million students currently learning the same material that you're about to learn. So there are 2 million students. The human population is 7.81 billion. Here's the final question. What percentage of the world population is currently privileged to be learning this awesome science known as biochemistry? We do the math and divide 2 million into 7.81 billion, and we arrive at a percentage of 0.0256. That means less than 1%, less than 0.1%. So that's why I tell you that I feel very privileged and fortunate to live a life that enables me to learn and teach this amazing material. We are a select, very small percentage of the people on this planet who are privileged to be able to learn this. I also want to let you know that whatever money it cost you to take this class, the money that you had to pay, you're getting an amazing return on investment. And I'll prove that to you yet again right now. So many of you are pre-med, pre-nursing, maybe pre-PA, pre-dental, pre-pharmaceutical science, or my field, pre-biotechnology. And what do you think the average salary is for these different careers? And that number is actually approximately $120,000 per year. This course, Chem 365, is an absolute requirement for those careers. So how much of that salary is due to this class, due to my class? I would argue maybe, say, $10,000. And if we take the $10,000 and multiply it by the 25 years of earning, that comes to $250,000 that my class is providing for you. And if I take that $250,000 and I multiply it by our 200 students, that means I am earning this class $50 million in future earnings. So you better take the class seriously, work really hard, study a lot, listen to your professore, and get an A in the class, because then you can move on to these wonderful careers that are going to pay you a lot of money. So that concludes our introduction to biochemistry, Chemistry 365. And you could tell probably from this introduction that it's not going to be a boring class. So sit down, strap in, get ready to study, to learn, to do really well in this class. It's a fascinating class. It's going to be wonderful. You're going to learn. When I took this class, when I was in your shoes, it blew my mind. I could not believe that I was learning about all of the different molecular machines that work in our body and keep us alive. How is it that oxygen comes into our lungs, gets picked up by the scuba tank, hemoglobin, and then delivers it to our tissue? There's no CPU in our bodies. And the other thing I love about biochemistry, there's no politics, there's no religion. Everything within our bodies works based on the physical forces of our universe. It's absolutely fascinating. I love it, as you can tell, and I think we're going to have a great semester. So now we're going to move on to the videos that describe the syllabus, which is important information on how to do well in this class. And then you can move on to section 1.1, chapter 1.